It was an absolute pleasure bumping into Nick on Saturday, and what a fantastic career he's had in presenting. He was on Channel 4, he does racing TV, and he's even got his own programme on a Sunday called Luck on Sunday. Well, tonight it's our luck because Nick is joining us. Welcome to our show, Nick.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be with you, and very opportunistic of you to nab me when I was at Kempton last weekend, but it hasn't taken us long to get together, so it's great to be with you.
No, thank you very much for joining. We've had some great guests on, Nick, as you know. How I like to start, mate, is how did you get into presenting? What started it all off for you, Nick?
Well, it's a long story, Gaz. It's only now I really reflect that, some people, when they're growing up, they don't really realise it, but they're probably training for what they're going to end up doing. And I don't suppose there was any point in my childhood or my teens where I thought, well, do you know what I really am going to end up doing is presenting horse racing on television. But at the time, I was obsessed by horse racing. There are a lot of young people who are, or probably not as many as we'd like there to be, but there are people who are. And if they do like horse racing, it's actually one of those things that you get completely bound up in. It tends not to be a sort of thing that you just like casually. So I was completely obsessed with it from a very young age. And then I suppose really the time that it started to occur to me that it could be a career was I went to Kentucky after I left school, and I was there for a year, right in the heart of horse country, and I started to know a lot more about pedigrees and international racing, because I'd always sort of grown up as a jumps fan, really. As you know, my parents had the odd horse back in the 70s, and they were very good friends with Josh Gifford, who was my godfather, so that's where the connection with your connection with Bob Champion and Alden Eaty and the Cancer Trust comes in. So I would always follow his horses, and then I got to know more about the flat. I loved that as well, and sort of bloodstock side of things. Came back to university, again, didn't really think about working in horse racing particularly, but always knew that I wanted to write or broadcast, really. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in the media. And I just got very lucky that at the end of my time at university in London, the Out the Races channel was just starting up, and I think they were not desperate. There were plenty of very good people working there, but the American racing show started up, and there weren't that many people staffing 8 hours a night. And I knew a guy who was working there in the finance division, and he said, you ought to try out for these guys. And so I wasn't particularly sort of thrusting when I was 22, 23, but I rang a guy called Jim Ramsey, who was the channel editor, and I was going to say the rest is history, but things started moving quite quickly, really. I just got very lucky very quickly, and I was on air the next week.
Wow, well, that fascinates me about your story with Josh Gifford, because my fundraising, it all started with Josh Gifford, and he was a great friend, and I used to go down the yard once a week to go and see him, the days of Bradbury Star and Deep Sensation, and he was fantastic. He came to the functions for me, absolute top guy, and we raised a lot of money for motor neurone disease for him.
I was going to say, I suppose my earliest memories really of following his horses were probably a little bit before that, probably late 80s, sort of 87, 88, 89, when he was really unlucky not to be champion trainer that year, 87, 88, where he was completely dominant, and he led everywhere. And were it not for, David Ellsworth just had this amazing run towards the end of the season where he won the Grand National with Ryman Reason, who should have been down on his nose at Richard. Yeah. And then Desert Hawk pulled it out of the fire in the Whitbread, on what wasn't the last day of the season then, but the very last big race of the season. And but for that, he would have been champion trainer, and it was always a great regret that he wasn't. But I suppose it was around about then that I really started following his horses. So in the sort of Jim Joel days with the Ballyhanes and the Door Latches, and he regularly had sort of trebles and four-timers on the telly. I remember Peter Hobbs running a four-timer for him at Cheltenham one day, and Richard Rowe running a four-timer at Kempton. It was those sort of days, really, end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, and then, as you say, the Bradbury Stars and Deep Sensations came along.
Yeah, absolutely. So, interviewing then, Nick, you got any favourites that you've interviewed that stick out in your mind?
Doing this show over the last few years, really, over the last 4 or 5 years, the Sunday programme, it's been lovely, really, because it's given me a great opportunity to be able to sit down and get to know a lot of sort of prominent figures in the game that little bit better. I mean, the one that people always talk about is the Barney Curley interview, because he wasn't someone who tended to be interviewed very often, and not for sort of sit down for an hour job, but that way, and certainly not live. You know, there'd be a few features, and obviously everyone remembers the flare up at Folkestone, but to actually sit down and talk to a guy as complex and idiosyncratic as that, it wasn't that long before he died, and it was almost like the last confessional. It was an extraordinary hour really spent in his company. That would have been one of the ones I enjoyed very much. Cricket Head, just after she retired, she's an amazing woman, an absolute pioneer, a real inspiration. I thought she was absolutely terrific. There've been so many, over the years that I've really enjoyed. But those are two that really stand out.
Yeah, wonderful. And obviously Barney Curley was set Declan Murphy on his way to being a jockey. And Declan thinks a lot of Barney. So busy racing then. Where are you tomorrow?
Thornton.
You're at Thornton. Right,
The World and his wife will be at Ascot. I'll be at Taunton. A couple of years ago, the boss said to me, Racing TV, he said, "Oh, there's not much Saturday. We haven't got Ascot. You won't want to go to Taunton." And I said, "Well, I won't go to Taunton. I'm very happy to go to Taunton." So this finally become my annual visit to Taunton now.
Well, I've got a horse. Well, I've got shares in a horse that's running at Taunton tomorrow. You can keep an eye on for me. He's going back over hurdles. It's Getaway Trump.
Yeah, good horse.
Yeah, he's a good horse. He's won 7 times for us, and he's I don't know. He just didn't get his jumping together, but he's back over hurdles tomorrow. I think he's got to carry about £12 more than the others because of his second in the Challow a couple of years ago to Champ, and so you can cheer on our Getaway Trump tomorrow.
I will. I mean, do you enjoy that syndicate experience, Gabba? Do you get well looked after?
Do you know what? It's absolutely fantastic. You're not in it for the money, Nick. You're in it for the fun of being an owner. You know, we've got shares in a horse called Stage Star, which has won the Challow. It's heading for the Ballymore at Cheltenham now, and it's just fantastic to be involved. And to tell people that I've had 22 winners as a racehorse owner is quite nice.
A few more than I've had, Gaz.
Yeah, but Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, for coming on our show. Thank you so much. And obviously, you know I'm on tour. I'm on my 4th course tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll bump into each other somewhere along the line.
Well, I hope so, and I'd love to walk one of the courses with you soon. So just let me know where you are. Maybe we'll do it at Cheltenham, but hopefully before.
I'd love to do it at the festival, but they have told me I'm not allowed. I've got to go back to Cheltenham on the 14th of April to do that.
Could we not do it the day before, on the Monday or something like that?
Yeah, it's a good idea, but I am staying away 3 nights, and I think if I sneak another one in, I think my missus might get a bit upset. To be honest, I couldn't be away from her any longer.
I know the feeling, we've all been there.
Yeah, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. You look after yourself, and hopefully we'll catch up soon, fella.
Cheers, guys, anytime.
Cheers, Nick. Bye-bye, mate. Bye-bye. There we go. What a superstar. Nick joining us live tonight, and there we go.